I haven't read that one either. I've read this one because it's to do with my research. I haven't read that one at all.
So this is good. This is.
I meant to do it last night. Forgot that we had an extra, an hour left.
An hour.
Plus, I drank a pint of mudslide, then had some wine and some whiskey.
Okay, why did you keep drinking that shit?
Because he's a dumbass.
No, because it needs to go, and it's not too bad with
Why
ice
aren't you
if you drink a
recording
pint
this
of it.
shit?
I am recording this
Oh,
shit.
seriously?
Excellent.
Shit.
I'm fairly certain that we've already gotten our intro with the with your discussion of drinking the mudslide.
We don't need to
Yes.
turn me into an alcoholic every time.
Yes, we do.
My parents want to listen to this, and they were already worried about me during my undergrad.
After dark is this?
Just saying.
Hey guys, you're listening to the Paleo After Dark podcast, which we're going to be doing every 2 weeks, looking at various aspects of paleontology and science, which we're all involved in, from a more informal standpoint of students that are stupid enough to be doing it. Today, there's the 4 of us that are going to be regulars. There's myself, James, we've got Amanda,
Hello.
Randall,
Hello.
and Curtis. And
Yellow.
in a minute, we're going to sort of tell you a little bit about ourselves so that you know who we are. We're not going to do this every time, but this is the first official one.
Yeah, we had one unofficial one, which should be up there too.
Yeah.
At some point. Yeah.
James, disclaimer.
Yes, the disclaimer. Okay.
Yeah, that was the one thing we should have had in the unofficial one at the very beginning, right, James?
So a little bit of legalese. Okay, we of course all work at the University of Kansas, but none of our opinions are actually representative of the University of Kansas, nor does the University of Kansas endorse anything we say in any way, shape, or form. Also, this isn't going to be PG. We're all horrible people that can't not swear or mock things or people. So just bear that in mind if you're going to continue listening to us. There was something else as well, I'm pretty sure.
Lock away your children, run screaming for the hills, that sort of thing.
That too. Oh, also, we don't fact check. If we say anything that's outright or outrageously wrong, just tell us, and if you're right, we'll might put a link up. If you're wrong, we will mock you on air.
By the time this is actually online, we should have a mailbag ready.
Yeah, so send all of your complaints to James Lambsdale.
Courtesy of Curtis Congreve, technical doctor.
Technical doctor, technically speaking. Well, James, if you want to explain to the audience who you are.
Oh, right. Okay, that would be a good start. I am token diversity.
Token diversity.
I'm technically foreign because I'm English, but I'm the good kind of foreign.
Oh, Christ. So this is where we're starting.
Explicit.
Yeah,
I
okay.
wish you could see how hard the rest of us are face palming right now.
It's all right. It's American. I know you don't like people that are different.
So how's India doing?
They're fine.
Okay.
They're fine. We gave them roads.
Oh, good. They must be so happy for that.
Man, I'm going to jail or something. Anyway, so as well as being, I guess,
horrible person.
Oh, come on. Give him a little bit of a break. Let
He's
him intro
British.
himself.
at least I never killed Jesus.
Right off to the Jewish jokes. Hi, Amanda.
Anyway, so I'm an invertebrate paleontologist. Not all invertebrate paleontologists are like me, I assure you. I work on arthropod groups, especially from the Paleozoic, which is your pre-dinosaur, more interesting part of the Earth. And I look at how they're related, how they evolve, and my specific thing at the moment is how certain groups, like Euryptids and trilobites, respond to mass extinction events.
Hi everyone, I'm Amanda. I'm a PhD student. I work on specifically fossil birds and bird tracks, but pretty much I work with any birds, living, dead, doesn't much matter. I really just like birds. And mostly what I work on is looking at fossil trackways and sort of interpreting behaviors from them, and then looking at modern counterparts and trying to figure out how can we quantify these behaviors and actually make it so they make sense. And as James mentioned, yes, I'm Jewish. When it comes to Passover, I will probably complain so much about not being able to eat bread.
It doesn't matter that you're Jewish.
Shut up, James.
For the record, as far as the Passover meal, the whole point where you're supposed to eat the like really bad spices.
Matzah, yeah.
No, like the bitter herbs.
Oh, the bitter herbs. Yeah.
That's usually just horseradish. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's horseradish.
It's the greatest part of the meal.
No, it's great. Yeah.
I feel like there's something been lost in the translation through the years.
I'm still... Well, no, it's because they can't... I mean, why would you do something you don't like?
Because it's supposed to remind you of the suffering and torture of
Why
slavery.
do
Your
that?
suffering must be more severe.
To be fair, matzah is literally just a saltine without the salt, and it's horrible. But that's not the point. We'll
matzah's
argue that
fine.
later. Now on
I'm
to
still
Randall.
waiting. I'm
Shut
still
up,
waiting
James.
for that Passover meal you promised me one day.
Shut up, James. Go ahead, Randall.
I'm Randall, and I'm a master's student here at the University of Kansas. I'm specifically study taphonomy, which is preservation of decaying organisms. I shoot things with lasers.
Yeah.
And I'm still waiting for the pizza that Amanda promised us when she practiced her comps.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, shit, I forgot about
Yeah,
that.
do you know what
No. She took the remaining people out for Chinese food. If you had left, like,
I didn't get to go.
Yeah, you didn't stay.
Ben took me home. I was sad.
I did
Oh,
stay.
except...
I don't remember that.
No, you promised and then it never happened, and I was really hungry. And I practiced
You
my comps.
can't eat regular pizza anyway.
Wow.
Go ahead, Curtis.
Anyway, no, wait.
So what does Amanda owe you, Curtis?
She doesn't owe me anything.
When I practiced my comps, I sent the email out and I said, I'll provide everyone pizza Amanda style, and then didn't get pizza.
Schmuck.
That is the accurate word. My name's Curtis. I'm technically I have a PhD, I guess. I have defended my PhD. So I am technically out of the University of Kansas, but I'm still hanging around trying to find a job. Anyway, I do phylogenetic analysis, morphological phylogenetics of trilobites, and I'm interested in sort of levels of selection and trying to see if there are big evolutionary patterns that occur throughout the course of the history of life, and specifically I also look at mass extinction events. And I guess that's about it.
Yeah.
You bum.
Yeah, and
Well,
I'm
you're still
going to be a
technically
bum.
employed.
Yeah, I'm technically employed at the moment.
Technically, yes.
Teaching kids the future. Or the past.
I'm teaching kids the present. I'm doing bio TAing.
Ah. Fun.
Yeah.
So they know what a mammal is yet?
They have
Boring.
yet to. They're going to be dissecting a fetal pig in the future. They have yet to do that. They're
Wait,
presently
fetal or feudal?
Fetal.
a fetal,
Okay.
Yeah, a fetal pig.
Feudal pig.
It's crazy. It's dressed up like like a samurai, and it defends the honor of the kingdom.
Good job on finding a feudal society that isn't Western Europe, by the way.
I've been playing a lot of Tomb Raider recently, and that's set up in a like extinct Japanese society where you eventually fight a whole samurai clan. Anyway,
Okay.
that's why it's stuck in my head.
This should show
He has
that
been
we
playing
are.
this every night till about 3 a.m.
Yeah, about right.
This should show how
Speaking
very,
of which, if
very
I'm very loud, you should just
nerdy
knock
we
on my
are.
door and say, "Shut the fuck up."
Actually, I was about ready to. Curtis, shut the fuck up! We have
Now
to
we've
wake
got a
up in
domestic.
5 hours.
You just said you're witnessing a domestic.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
He never listens to me. I wish he loved me more.
No, that new pillow, I just out of it like alive.
Wait, what? What did you do to that new pillow?
Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
What are we going to be discussing
yeah,
today,
James, what are we talking about today?
Well, I guess the main thing that I think a lot of people would be interested in is the spiral-toothed shark story.
Ooh.
I would like to start this off with, how do you think this is pronounced? Helicoprion?
I really, really like James's mispronunciation of helicopteron.
Helicopteron. It's got a whirly thing.
Helicopter on terrorize.
God damn it.
Oh, you're an asshole, Randall.
So, I think that we should pose this to our listeners and either vote for the correct way, which is Helicoprion, or James's hysterical slaughtering of helicopteron?
Helicopteron.
Helicopteron. Or it could be helicoprion.
It could be a helicoprion. I mean, as you've said, what Derek Briggs suggests that Anomalocaris is actually Anomalocaris.
Anomalocaris,
And
based on
everyone's
the way
just been
the Greek
pronouncing
is.
it wrong
Paul,
all these years.
I suspect this is a Harry Whittington thing, because Paul also pronounces it that way. So
Okay.
Anomalocaris.
But to be fair, I mean, the people who named it probably understand what they wanted to name it.
Yeah. Well,
That's a
because
fair
Anomalocaris is literally weird crab or shrimp.
Weird shrimp.
Weird
yeah.
shrimp, but it's named after the mouthpiece.
Yeah,
It's made.
no. It's named after the limb.
Oh,
The
right,
great-
right.
The
right,
mouth
right,
part
right.
is
The
Patoya.
mouthpiece looked like a
Patoya.
pineapple.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was Patoya, which
The,
was supposed to
the
be
mouthpiece
jellyfish.
is the jellyfish, and the body.
The body was moss
It's
or
moss.
something. Yeah.
The
Marine moss.
the marine
you know.
moss.
I'd like to
Real
remind
common.
everybody, we are not fact checking.
That's almost as good as.
No, I think you're right.
What's his face's lichen? The Ediacaran lichens.
Oh.
Silacer. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, good old Dolph.
I like a lot of Dolph's work.
I do
no,
too.
it's really good.
The man is a genius when it comes to fossil soils and things like that. But I think he kind of missed the mark on the Ediacaran.
Well, you know what Dolph
Everyone
did.
makes mistakes.
That's true. You know what Dolph did during the Second World War?
What did he do?
He was a U-boat commander or captain, and he was, I believe, stationed around the Baltic-Scandinavian region. And literally, he just went into fjords and took sediment samples, and he didn't actually do anything else.
That guy owns.
I was gonna say, if you're a U-boat captain, your chances of survival are probably really low. So you
Especially
might
if
as well.
they ship you into the Atlantic and tell you to go join the wolf packs.
We
God.
volunteer to guard the docks.
We're gonna go here because there's maybe Allied subs around here.
So, not suggesting as courtesy of speed that Dolph was somehow like a war coward or anything like that.
No, I actually just think that's an amazing thing that he was so interested in the science
Yeah.
that he was like, fuck the war. Let's
Yeah.
just go do
No,
this.
it's really interesting. And the amazing thing is there are papers. There's this big gap in papers during the Second World War.
Makes a lot of sense.
And one of the people that was very active in my field was Leif Sturmer, who was a Norwegian. And he published in the early 30s, and then you don't really see anything from him until the 70s because he was in the Norwegian resistance. And then after the war, he was basically made a diplomat because he was so well respected. But in 1944, there is this big monograph on arachnomorphs that he must have been working on the entire time the war was going on. And it just comes out immediately.
Well, I was gonna say Simpson's his first book. What is
His,
it? Tempo and Mode and
yeah,
Speciation.
yeah.
Like he wrote that after coming back from the war, right? He was like writing notes of that
Oh, well,
while
yeah,
he was in the war.
It's like he said, there's a note, and it's like there are certain chapters that were rushed that were done under periods of stress because he was a lieutenant or colonel or something in the
he was something in
yeah.
the war effort in World War II.
yeah, and he was writing it while on the battlefield.
I would say
essentially.
bombs are going off and people are
Yeah.
shooting
Man,
at
that's a
him.
crazy idea. I mean, you're so passionate about the research that you're doing. You're just, your life is at stake, but it's the thing that you want to do, so you just keep doing it.
Well, it's like Tolkien wrote half of The Hobbit while it was The Hobbit, right? He wrote while he was in the trenches.
I believe so.
I
Yes.
believe
Yeah.
so, yes.
Yeah, because Lord of the Rings, he had more time, and literally
Yeah.
in Lord of the Rings, they had to rip it from him
to get it published, yeah. And then he kept going back, and with The Hobbit, he would go back and do revisions.
Well, it's because he made the ring way more important than it was
Yeah,
originally.
he did. Yeah,
He expanded it from 1 page to 20.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's suggestion that the Gollum scene is actually like the most recent rewrite,
It is. Yeah,
and that's the reason why it has a very tonal shift from the rest of the book.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because originally, if I recall correctly, Gollum gave Bilbo the ring, legitimately gave it to him.
Yeah,
As-
the ring
as
is
the-
not nearly as malevolent potentially as it's depicted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's been a while since I read up on that stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of a nerd.
That's okay. If you're going to nerd out on something, The Hobbit is possibly one of the least worst things to do it on.
I read the Silmarillion in China.
I read the
because
Silmarillion.
I'm
Did you?
sorry.
It
when
was
I
good.
when I
mean,
read the Silmarillion, I read it like I read the Bible.
Yeah,
where
you
I
go-
read a chapter, forgot what was happening, and then assumed that they were going to tell me anything important in the next chapter.
and they did.
Until you
Yeah.
reach the paragraph where it's he who begot this one, who begot
Begot
this
this
one, who
one.
begot this one.
There-
There is a paragraph in there describing one person's lineage
Oh,
in
by
the
the way,
Bible
Curtis,
or in
when
the
did we
and
start?
Silmarillion?
similarity.
In all,
When did we start?
when did we start? Let's not debate timing.
Okay. So this could be aimed for 1.5 hours or 2 hours.
We're just gonna talk until we run out of a topic, James.
Probably a good
Well,
idea.
considering we haven't started a topic yet.
Let's do that, James.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's
our
helicopter on.
topic.
Helicoprion, god damn it.
Helicopterin, yes.
Okay, so I have the paper right here, and I guess you've all at least looked at the pictures.
Yep.
And I guess what we'll do is we'll try any pictures we discuss or anything relevant, we'll try to throw on underneath.
Well, let's first start out by explaining what exactly Helicoprion is.
Yeah.
Or was.
Yeah. So originally, Helicoprion, it was
Don't
considered.
have a heart attack, James.
I'm trying not to burp into the mic.
Oh dear lord.
Okay, well, the burp
Let's-
away from the mic. It's dynamic.
Let's keep this classy, guys. God. So
Beating a dead horse?
No,
they-
that's the part of the jar of the dildo bat.
Oh. Speaking of which, have you enjoyed Saints Row?
anyway,
Come on.
Helicoprion.
Amanda's talking.
anyway, so Helicoprion was originally found as pretty much literally a whorl of teeth. So if you look at the photographs, it's just sort of, it looks almost like an ammonite shell, like a coiled shell,
Yes.
with rows of teeth on it. And these are called tooth batteries. Sharks, there are other animals that have tooth batteries. Some duck-billed dinosaurs and other dinosaurs will have what's called a tooth battery. And it's really just rows of teeth that are ever replaced. Constantly being replaced. Now, sharks have tooth batteries, but in Helicoprion, it's unique because the teeth aren't lost. The entirety of the jaw just sort of grows out into this elongate coil, which is very bizarre. So originally when they found it, they thought, oh, it's a lower jaw of a shark. That's what we usually get from sharks, because remember, sharks are cartilaginous. They don't have a lot of actual bone, but the jaws themselves are bony.
So they don't really preserve in the fossil record because cartilage just decays.
Right, unless you're really fortunate and you either get really good soft tissue preservation or you have calcified cartilage, which is a thing, but it's pretty rare. I'm not entirely certain. I think mostly in sharks it's only the vertebrae that get calcified.
You generally get isolated vertebrae and then jaw elements. You very rarely get anything else.
Right.
And the jaw elements being preserved is what brings us to our topic today.
Indeed.
Yep.
Actually, and just a slight correction, looking at the paper here, they didn't think it was the jaw at first. It was it was so weird. They assumed it was either this rostral projection of the nose or something on the tail. Looking at this diagram,
It's been
or something on the
described
dorsal
yeah.
fin.
Many things. The one that had been generally accepted is it's part of the jaw.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, well, after they get, I guess, 4 reconstructions in looking at this diagram, they start thinking either it's a lower lip, or then they start suggesting maybe it's part of the actual jaw itself. The interesting thing is, this, I think, led to one of the big discussions on sexual dimorphism, because they were thinking that this had to be, assuming that nothing could eat with these things. So they were assuming they weren't real teeth, or if they were teeth, bear in mind sharks are covered in denticles anyway.
Yeah, they
That-
that
that-
they were going to be enlarged
Their
denticles.
teeth are just
Yeah, that
scales.
brings us to a point that maybe we should mention that teeth are literally just modified scales.
Yeah.
The way that teeth form, and I'm the vertebrate paleontologist here, so I'm going to wax eloquent.
By all means, wax.
Wonderful. Wax on.
But don't wing.
Wax off. God. So the way that when animals develop, the mouth actually, the way it works is that you have skin that comes in and covers the inside of the mouth. And this is super, super early embryonic development. And if you look at really primitive fossil fish, they've got all these bony plates and bony denticles and bony
like your
scales.
what's the big
Anathens, jawless fish.
Placoderms.
Placoderms.
Yeah, the placoderms.
Placoderms are jawed fishes, but I'm talking
Yeah.
more about the jawless fish.
Agnathans.
Okay.
Agnathans.
I was gonna say, but you even see it in like what's the big Dunkleostes?
That's a
Mammalian?
placoderm. That's a big old.
And placoderms are weird because they don't have. This might be an example of jaws evolving twice. because
Their jaws aren't jaws.
They're not jaws. They just have giant bone plates that they use to crush or bite things. It's very bizarre.
Self-sharpening.
Is it really, really sad that the only thing I can think of whenever you say they're not jaws is did it?
Yes, that is fairly sad.
Really? You don't get James Bond?
Yeah, you know, I can get that too. Yeah, James
yeah.
Bond. James
Okay,
Bond. I
yeah,
get
that'll
that.
work.
I like Moonraker. Isn't Moonraker the one where he finally gets a
It's-
girlfriend and then like he
yes.
becomes not a bad guy?
Yes.
Because everyone liked him too much.
Yeah, Jaws
Well,
is
he was
pretty cool.
awesome. You just felt bad for him because he just had a horrible deformity.
Yeah. So
Like the shark.
the way that
Like this shark.
dentist.
So the way that teeth form is, they're essentially just like leftover dermal osticles that form into teeth. And if you look at shark skin, who said that James, you said that they were covered in dermal osticles.
Yeah.
They're like, that's why if you rub a shark skin the wrong way, it feels like you're running it the wrong way over a bunch of tiny teeth.
I would say you could hurt yourself actually in some sharks.
Oh yeah, you can
There's
seriously
a reason
injure
why
yourself.
divers check their hands if they pet a shark.
Yeah. So that is how teeth are formed. And that's kind of the reason that these people were thinking, oh, well, they could be on the tail, because you can literally form teeth pretty much anywhere on the skin.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting. Maybe we should look up to see if there are any, like, deformity, like genetic or diseases or something that form because you just have teeth growing in random
Just imagining
places.
human beings with teeth
I'm
all over their...
It's a very
I'm
disturbing
pretty
mental
sure that this
image.
might have been the X-Files of somebody with teeth growing out their arm.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't on the X-Files because I've seen every single episode of the X-Files,
So that
but
might-
it sounds like something that could
There
be on
are
the
be a
X-Files.
tumors
thing.
that haven't found fully formed teeth in them.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a
Development,
disturbing-
by the way, is gross.
It is.
Development's disturbing.
It's like things invaginating and then flesh forming and then things poking. Ugh. Anyway.
So
The human body is disgusting. Brought to you by PaleoCast.
So
After dark.
After
Right.
dark. After dark.
Slightly before midday.
Slightly before midday.
But it's very
It's
cloudy
after
out
dark.
today. So,
Somewhere.
So
And then, and then they thought, because this was so weird, that it had to be sexual dimorphism, and that these things were one of an existing species.
right, and that brings me back to a saying that my advisor Larry Martin always said: if it's in anthropology and you can't understand it, it's religion.
Religion or
If
ritual.
it's in biology and you can't understand it, it's sex.
Sexual dimorphism, yeah. That is something, I don't know about you guys, but I have heard that a lot as well.
That's
Yeah.
a beautiful quote.
Yes.
Yeah.
So and
Who was
that
it told me that?
that actually it sums it up pretty well. There's a lot of really bizarre things, like peacock tails.
Sex.
Sex.
Speaking of which, actually getting just a slight aside on that, have you heard about, there's a religion in a small island in the Pacific which worships an American PI that was there during World War II?
Seriously.
And they actually, their religious ceremonies involve like walking around with pretend rifles, and they've got a like Air Force base with an American flag. It's a fascinating study of how religion evolves, because they just imagine that eventually he's going to return. He's going to be, he left, but he's going to return. And when he comes back, he's going to bring back with him all the riches of heaven.
So who's going to tell them the Nietzschean fact that God's dead?
It's an interesting idea that
We're going to perpetuate this myth.
So what we're saying is Scientologists are right?
No, I'm just saying that you have one guy who really was important, and then as time goes on, oral tradition
It
begins to
becomes-
build something even bigger.
And they
because you were,
deify him.
Yeah, because you were never actually a part of it.
You kind of see this in research as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You definitely see it a lot. There's an interesting revisionist history to everything, even when you're going into research. Like, this person did all this great work. It's like, well, Newton was an asshole who stole a lot of his ideas from Leibniz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, you get some theories that are inviolate just because of the person that didn't. And eventually, if they're wrong, they'll get overturned, but it can be quite a struggle.
Well, I mean, then we're getting into
Well, look
Gould's
at
whole notion of paradigm shifts.
How do you pronounce it? Lysenko? The Russian guy who completely
Lysenko?
Lysenko.
Yeah, who completely
Lysenko,
screwed
yeah.
over Russian genetics for and set them back 50, 60 years, longer than that.
Lysenko.
He was a geneticist.
Pre or post Mendeleev?
Oh, way post.
Okay.
This was during Stalin.
Okay.
Stalin era
okay.
Russia.
Okay.
And
yeah.
he pretty much was part of the driving force behind the famines. And essentially what he was doing was he did not, he pretty much was like, no, Mendelian genetics is nonsense. It's, it's fascist, it's a bourgeois, elitist nonsense. And he said, we're going to do it this way. And of course it was completely wrong. And pretty much
Is this not working?
just completely screwed the country over. It's
Okay. For a man
Also, that
who's-
was German.
I was saying, for a man whose every accent is Russian, you somehow did German.
Considering for a man that is probably the latest incarnation of Rasputin, that was an amazingly non-Russian accent.
Yeah, like every single time you're trying to do a foreign accent, you always go, "Hello, my name is Vladimir, and I'm very interested." Like you always do really cheesy Russian accent, but you went German.
Even
when
when
you needed to go Russian.
Even when he needs to pretend to be him, but with something that he doesn't have, he puts on a Russian accent.
Anyway, the only Russian geneticist that I remember is Dobzhansky. So.
Oh no, Dobzhansky was way after Lysenko. He was in like the 70s.
No, Dobzhansky was in the 30s and the 40s. He was one of the major players of the modern synthesis.
I thought he was. Oh, never mind.
You're thinking about
Dobzhansky went to America.
That's right. Yeah. Sorry, I've switched things up again in my head. That happens a lot. No, yeah, that's probably why he got out. If I recall correctly, I read.
Well, I mean, there's also purge issues.
Yeah,
You'd be on the wrong list. You needed to get out.
Well, that's why he was.
Screw you guys, I'm leaving.
But that's
Stolen likes to make you known person.
But that's why he was on the wrong list.
I apologize to all Russian listeners for that horrible accent.
Interesting little World War II factoid, because I'm a big fan of various areas of history, and we had to learn World War II in school. But I think he was a General Zhukov. Was perhaps the most successful general in World War II. He was possibly better than Rommel, and Rommel is well considered to be perhaps the greatest
Wolf
general.
was great.
Oh yeah.
Zhukov was consistently undermanned, understaffed. He had almost none of the equipment and material that he said he needed, and yet he won every single battle. Part of this was because, I mean, they were fighting in Russia, and Russia hates everyone as a terrain. But anyway, so he basically won the war for Russia and managed to push back west after the Axis forces were pushing in east. He was actually on one of Stalin's purge list, but they missed the H off his name, so he didn't get killed.
Nice.
Anyway, so we're getting back to this shark thing, or is
Right.
it a shark? That's I guess the key point of the paper, right?
Right.
So after a long period of debate, this paper has come out, and what they've done is there's a specimen that's not the holotype. I don't think.
No, it's
from
not the
scanning
holotype.
the paper very briefly just now.
This specimen was from an early Permian limestone in Indiana.
Oh yes, why don't you explain this to us, Randall?
Yeah,
Mister,
Randall,
I read the
Randall
paper.
took
Well,
notes.
the specimen has been sitting in, I believe it was the Indiana University Museum for decades until recently when they decided, hey, let's take a look at this. Wait, this is Helicoprion.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
And then
We
they,
have new technology.
yeah, they CT'd
Let's
it.
use...
Wait, we can rebuild it. We can make it faster, cheaper, better.
No,
cheaper?
but we could scan it.
We don't want to spend a lot of money on the $1 million man.
Billion rupee man.
We could do a CT scan on it.
Okay.
Because it looks like there's some jaw preserved here. So they take it to Texas. They CT scan it. Hey, there's some jaw here.
And now you've got the battery in situ, so you know
Yes.
exactly where it was.
Nice.
And so it does look like, as Amanda was saying, it's part of. Is it the upper or lower?
It is
the
the
lower.
lower jaw. It is the complete lower jaw.
Yeah, so it's the complete lower jaw, and as Amanda was saying, instead of shedding the teeth, it just pushes them into the jaw. Do you think, as a slight tangent, this would give a finite lifespan to each individual? Like, eventually it gets so compacted that it would die?
So
No.
kind of like how with mammals, if you wear down the molars enough that they just can't eat anymore.
I mean, I guess, but I mean, there's also rats that just constantly wear down their incisors because all rodents do that. Maybe, but
I don't think so. I think they just grow the lower jaw bigger and bigger, probably.
Probably. The
Uh-huh.
estimate in the paper, the largest size would be somewhere between 20 and 25 feet.
Okay, considering this jaw is 5 centimeters and it's already got a ton of teeth, okay, I could see.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, just getting to the whole mammal molar
not 5
thing,
centimeters,
like that's an accidental thing. Like,
Oh, no,
it's
it
not.
is,
It's not
yeah.
a design function.
Well, I mean,
No.
rats
Granted,
keep
not
growing
to
until they run
suggest
out of
that
food
any
or
of-
something kills them.
Not to suggest that any of evolution is designed. I mean, evolution is random as hell. So fuck. I mean, it could be anything.
No, it's just just a thing that happens in mammals where obviously if we don't have teeth, we can't eat.
Is that your hypsodonty? They just keep growing?
Super hypsodonty, yeah.
Super hypsodonty, yeah.
is where
Yep.
they never end up. They are rootless essentially.
You got those nice, happy rodents constantly chewing at things, otherwise they can't eat.
Yeah.
Paradoxically, they need to keep eating, otherwise their teeth grow so fucking big they can't eat.
Yep. That's why.
Oh, that's why hamsters.
That's why hamsters, that's why rats are constantly chewing everything that Alicia owns.
Well,
Yes.
most rats,
Six.
at least
Six
your
friends.
wild Hackney sewer rat,
Six friends.
they just keep growing until they either reach a point where they can't keep putting on body mass because they're not getting enough food, or something kills them. I mean, you see some rats. I've seen a rat that was like bigger than a cat, and I'm not joking.
No, yeah.
ROUSs? I don't think they exist.
It's called the capybara.
God, I've been waiting to use that forever.
So wait, is this just going to be a thing now? The last one had BOUSs. Now
Ralph.
we just went to the ROUSs.
Spouses. Yes.
Ralph.
Yes, it will.
I really want to hear how that sounds because you redline when you bow, so it's just gonna sound like static ouse.
Yeah.
Fine.
And here we've got it's not really a souse. It's not a shark of unusual size.
No, it's a
not even a
rouse,
shark.
actually.
No, this
Yeah.
is
It is a rouse.
I mean, for a bit of background, currently the ichthyologists are currently gutting our idea of what sharks are. Sharks, you've got your killer sharks, things like lamniforms, but the rest of them might not be a clade. They might be, a grade or paraphyletic. So things like rays, I don't know if they're still directly allied to sharks in a clade, but
I think they still are, and then they're readjusting how like the dogfish are.
okay. So because what you have is a lot of shark-like animals that maybe are actually primitive conditions that don't fit directly on the shark lineage.
Okay.
And the thing with
helicoprion
is in fact a ratfish. Ratfishes are, I believe, similar to sharks. They're related to sharks.
Yeah, they're very closely related.
Can someone that's read the paper help me out?
I know
Professionalism, James. Professionalism.
I know minimal amounts of fish. I'm not a fish person, obviously.
We're all fish, Amanda.
Yeah, we are all fish. Technically, from a phylogenetic perspective, we are all fish.
But if I recall correctly, ratfish are more primitive. They're like
They're defined by this double connection in the cartilage. That's what the paper says.
Of the jaw?
In the jaw.
In the jaw.
Okay. Oh, so they could.
So
because
just
they
expand
had
the jaw?
jaw?
Now they had jaw data.
Like in
They went, wait, this is a
like-
ratfish.
Okay.
No, well, any shark can do that. This is
Well, yeah.
actually really cool. Sharks practice something called cranial kinesis. And
Wait,
that,
they practice something? Do they have to get good?
Well, it's like alligators
you
do.
think of a better way to put it then.
They use
Exhibit.
something called exhibit, have, display.
No, because
Fudge.
it's a functional aspect. Anyway, what cranial kinesis is it means that you can move the bones in your face and your head around. And most of the time it's in jaws. In fact, I think all the time it's in jaws.
Sharks have very small mouths
Don't.
that can become very large.
So Curtis is
Don't
trying to
what?
move the bones in his head right now.
No, I'm just mentally thinking
know,
about
in-
what a
in-
horrible superpower
I
that
believe,
would be.
I believe it's alligators. I don't know when they open their jaw, because the bones in the dorsal skull aren't fused. They move apart, and there is a direct line to the brain while they have their mouth open, because the skull parts in order for them to open the mouth.
Can
Well,
anyone
that's where the
t-
kill shot is.
I would say, can anyone tell whether or not that's bullshit? Because I can't.
I don't know. Anyway,
Watch
so,
Swamp
I will
People, see where
provide
they
you a
shoot 'em.
Wikipedia link in the
Yeah, in
description.
about 5 to 10 minutes, as soon as you're done with your phone for no reason.
What sharks can do is that they can actually, and you see this, and I'm sure you guys have all watched videos of great white sharks.
Shark
on YouTube.
Are you editing Wikipedia right now?
I'm going to find it for you.
What these guys can do is they can actually swing the entire jaw out. So if you've seen something like a goblin shark, they're the weird looking sharks with the big, long, pointy
they can, like,
Yeah.
jet it out about
rostrum.
6
They
inches.
can literally like 6 to 8 inches or something. They can swing the front of the face, the jaw, the entire jaw out, so that they can grab onto things, and they bend that rostral point up. So
Is
that's,
this linked to the origin of the shoulder girdle? Is that pre or post sharks?
that's post sharks.
Post sharks.
Okay,
That's way
right.
post sharks.
Yeah, because they can't. That's why they can't turn their heads or
Yeah,
things like that,
no, that's
Right, yeah, I
that's
forgot
very
about that.
very post sharks. So I forgot where I was going with this.
You were talking about the ability to separate
shoot
the head
jaws
and
out.
shoot the jaws out.
Yeah, cranial kinesis. It's pretty cool. I know. I'm sorry, guys. It's been a long week. I was going
I
somewhere
say, you
with
sure
this,
you don't
and,
want a beer?
I gotta drive home.
No, we can drive you.
No, it's okay. I
How
kind of want a beer.
How do I describe what I'm trying to find on Google?
How do you describe what you're trying to find out on Google?
Cranial kinesis in alligators.
Cranial kinesis, again, still sounds like the shittiest psychic power ever.
It knows what kinesis is.
Well, yeah, it's
So,
movement.
The cool thing is, and while James is
Aren't you
looking this
sure?
up, I'll go on a tangent about cranial kinesis. It happens in birds too.
I would say, is this also technically happening in rodents as well, where they can compress their heads so that they can get through?
Oh,
I'm not sure. I'd have to look into
maybe.
that.
Okay.
But birds, what they do is, especially in like probing birds, like sandpipers, they will actually insert the beak down into the sediment and flex just the very, very tip of the beak to grab whatever it is and then pull the whole thing out.
Interesting. That's a fine degree of motor skill.
It's really, really cool. And I mean, a lot of birds have what's called proximal cranial kinesis, so they actually can flex both the upper and lower jaws independently.
Wow.
So cranial kinesis is a really interesting subject. Who the hell wrote that paper? It was like an exhaustive look at cranial kinesis in birds. Zusi, 1986, I
Susie?
think? Zusi.
Where?
I don't remember.
Zuzi.
Yeah.
Susie with a Z.
Susie with a Z.
That's how you spell the name. Crocodilians apparently lack cranial kinesis, but what I'm talking about is not cranial kinesis, it's about the dorsal parts of the head parting.
Okay.
Okay.
So the dorsal parts of the head parting. Is that just sort of like a vestigial
It's
ocelli?
like, you know we've got, in humans, you've got your suture running down the middle of the skull.
Yeah.
Where it's
That
fused,
never
yeah.
fuses.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when they open, that can part.
Okay.
All right.
This, bear in mind, is what I got told in undergrad or something like that, so I might have been lied to.
I say, is that potentially part of? I mean, is that potentially part of like the ocelli? You know, the light dark sensor.
pineal organ.
The pineal organ?
Yeah. Pineal
Oh,
organ.
that could be.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, that could be a potential.
Because I do remember that just being like a vestigial organelle or organ in most animals that's not used anymore.
Yeah.
Fish have it, and this is one of the interesting things.
A lot of stuff has it. We have a grad student here working on it in mosasaurs.
I thought you were going to say
We're
we have a
fish.
grad student that has a pineal organ.
I say we're fish though, right? Like we're
That's
getting
true,
into
yeah.
that.
Well, mosasaurs are varanids anyway,
and
more or less.
birds have a pineal gland.
Okay.
They use it for.
I mean, this is why we get affected by vitamin D, because we can sense light levels.
brain fart. I forgot what birds use it for. And I was just talking with Andy about this too because he was asking me about it. Whatever.
Happy juice?
I should
mean,
not.
here's the
I
thing.
should I should
Sensing
not be
seasons?
thinking today.
Here's the thing. Let's think about evolution. Just because it's there doesn't necessarily mean,
it's
it's
being used.
Look
No,
at the appendix.
No.
I know the appendix
birds
is
do
there to
use
fuck
it.
people over randomly.
So it's God's little "we're gonna fucking kill you" button.
Yes.
But in the past, it was important.
I read a book by Timothy Zahn where in Aliens it was like where their soul was kept, so they could remove it and then live forever as long as they kept that like stored. And in people, they realized that the appendix was the same thing, so maybe it's where our soul lives.
Oh.
So you're saying that people without appendices have soul or soulless?
Okay.
I don't even know how to respond to that.
So in this ratfish,
That's a good call.
in this.
So where we were going with all this is that I'm pretty sure that ratfish are like a primitive. Well, okay. Before the ichthyologists got in and messed everything up.
They derived
Progress
off
is messing
Derive-
everything up.
before the sharks and rays.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they
split.
were like a primitive
Yes.
sister group.
Because you
to-
get
to
ratfish
sharks.
today, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because
They're
I'm
not very diverse.
sharks are one of my favorite animals. I find them very, very interesting, and I read a lot about at least the modern ones. But in regards to the current understanding of their phylogenetic placement, I'm not entirely clear on it because it's been a while since I looked up on that.
Yeah, that's well.
Yeah.
There was
None of us are ichthyologists. So.
there was another paper came out I think end of last year that claimed to have unlocked the origins of the great white shark, or I guess you might just call
Oh
it
yeah,
the white
I
shark.
remember that paper.
It was in paleontology. Excuse me.
It probably won't. It will definitely come on the mic.
And what they say is that instead of it being related to things like megalodon and those big mega predators of their own clade called odonta
Something.
something. I'm not going to open my computer again. Giant toothed things.
Giant tooth things.
I actually have a blog post up on my computer, but and these great white sharks were related to makos and were just like big beefy makos, which kind of makes sense when you look at the tooth, the dentition, and the shape.
Yeah.
The one thing I didn't like so much was that they suggested that every species of white shark since I guess the Eocene were chronospecies.
So there's
species.
just suggesting that there's a massive anagenetic change. So they're thinking like megalodon is just a really big great white shark.
No. Megalodon's their own thing, but that there are 3 species of Carcharias, which are basically white sharks, and they're chronospecies, which would mean that they're all the same species.
But if they're distinct, I mean, this is getting into species concepts, which I don't know if we really want to talk about now.
It's a
right
philosophical issue, yes.
We'll save species concepts for later.
Yeah, I mean, if they are distinct and they're different species.
Either way, they trace the idea of the great white shark to some time.
Unless you can actually witness them grade in together through sequence, I think statements of chronospecies should be used sparingly at best.
Yeah. I briefly toyed with the idea.
You briefly toyed with the idea of just turning everything in your research program to chronospecies?
Well, no,
It would certainly save up your phylogenetic trees, because they'd just be one little line. I mean, it'd be great, right?
I mean,
then you wouldn't have all the problems that you've been having.
what problems?
No,
I
his problems
distinctly
have been-
remember screaming and cursing at computers that weren't working.
Well, that's because the computer wasn't working. It's not that his data's bad. It's the computer doesn't
my
want to work.
data is perfect, thank you. I've spent a long time making sure it is.
All right, this is an interesting discussion, which is a brief tangent. But the weird fact that if you attack someone's data, it's somehow attacking the scientist because you're attacking credibility if you say that the data is wrong.
if they've interpreted it wrong, they're idiots.
Yeah, but if they've
if the
collected it wrong, they're
method's-
liars.
Yeah, but if the method's wrong, then the method is wrong, and that's irrespective of the person. This is an unfortunate issue, and this is why I can't remember who it is, but there was a quote. I think it's Fred Schramm. Arthropod phylogeny brings out the worst in people.
Phylogeny in general brings out the worst in people.
Oh, come on.
It's
People
not
bring out the
just
worst in people.
arthropods.
No, the trouble is, okay, what the problem is there are people that use data badly, there are people that interpret data badly, and there are people that cling on to old phonetic ideas and don't like it when people use real data. And those three types of people cause problems.
How dare you youngins use new data?
Well, yeah, and you also end up with situations where people get a pet theory that informs the data that they collect, which is always problematic. But again, we're getting into this notion that immediately that sentence I just said is implying that someone's data is faulty, which is then an actual criticism of the scientist, when really, let's be honest, sometimes there's just fucking errors. Sometimes you just make mistakes, and it's not a fucking ad hominem attack.
No, well, this is something we can get into in a little bit. There's a second paper that I think is very of interest, which once we're finally done with
Helicobarion. Good save.
we can look at. But yes, being a phylogeneticist myself, I've had papers go through.
We can't reach.
Papers go through review.
Epic brofist denied.
That have gone through review, and do you know what? I love it when a referee actually checks my data matrix. It's very rare, but when they do it and then they point things out, and they said, and people have said to me, well, maybe this is actually this character, and this actually should be lumped into one thing. And I've looked at it, and not always, but sometimes they're right, and I'm really grateful of that because it saves me making errors.
I mean, I write the papers, and Lord knows I think the most annoying part of the editing is running through your own characters, trying to make sure that your shorthand is no longer shorthand, because it's very boring reading, even when you're the person who wrote it.
Yeah.
And so I can understand people glossing over, but you shouldn't. You should look at that shit, because that is the data of the paper.
Exactly.
God, I'm so glad I don't work on that crap.
But if you want to argue against it, you really should read it.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I have to read.
So boring.
I have to read phonetic bullcrap because people are suggesting these things are not species or are species. Don't just. Okay, once again, not representative of anybody else's views.
But yours. They are your
phonetics might be awesome. It's not, but it might be.
No, phonetics is not awesome. I'm pretty sure that phylogenetics won that war. And you know what? That is probably the view of the University of Kansas.
That's actually a really accurate statement. I think
any moment now, Ed
Bruce
Wiley's going to break down this door and beat the living shit out of me.
Yeah, should be like, fuck yeah, and he's going to drop the mic and walk out, just like, Wiley out,
He's going to
bitches.
drop the mic on my
Special
broken
guest
skull.
appearance by Ed Wiley.
But yeah, you, the thing is, even if you, and this is the one, not getting into species views or anything like that, you have your own philosophy. You need to be aware and understand everybody else's because you still need to deal with that. You can't just ignore it.
Yeah. You need to understand where the Gingriches of the world are coming from when they just... When they decide that there is no evolutionary tree of horses, even though there totally is an evolutionary tree of horses.
Oh, the earliest ones are probably basal.
That's not true. We know for a fact that just that okay. The problem with assuming that the earliest things you find are always basal is the assumption there is that the fossil record is completely perfect, that we have everything, and we don't. We would expect that we would find some derived things earlier on than what we find. That just suggests an even earlier split that we're not fucking preserving.
You've seen my horseshoe crab paper, right?
Yes.
Yeah, literally, they appear in the Silurian except for one species, which shows that there's about 12 lineages that occurred in the Ordovician that we have no evidence of.
Yeah, you totally fucking know that shit's in the Ordovician. But no, you just don't have it. And you know what? You might never have it, because the conditions might have not been right to fucking preserve it.
This is why, like, Amanda's bird stuff, she knows they're in, what, Jurassic at least? Triassic, maybe?
At least, like, mid to early Jurassic, because we have full-fledged birds in the late Jurassic.
No pun intended.
Oh, yeah.
Full-fledged birds.
That was pretty bad.
That's a good pun.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Well caught. I mean, really, like intellectual highbrow punning there.
Yeah, I'm
I
like,
should know. It's
and
probably
it was
messing
sound.
with an Englishman.
And it was totally unintentional.
Oh, okay.
But,
No, that wasn't an insult. Okay.
No, that wasn't an insult. If I called you a Welshie,
but
wow,
yeah.
that is all
That
right.
is all right. Yeah.
I really should move back to the mic then.
But no, that's a very good
Only
point.
when you're
and
laughing.
It's an excellent example. And we can see that in many different lineages that we just don't have the basal most forms. So the way we get around this is we say the most basal known form.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
Confucius ornis is the most the basal most known beaked bird.
And I mean, this is even, I'm going to throw a little bit of crazy phylogenetics here, but this is even an issue in modern studies. Like in modern studies, you're only going to be sampling A, what exists in the modern, and B, which is a whole issue, another issue, because if you're not getting extinct fauna, you might not be getting the most basal forms.
Right.
But also, you're not going to be able to study absolutely every animal, because we haven't sampled every animal.
Yeah.
But phylogenetics as such is sort of a system that should
It's predictive.
ideally be predictive.
Ideally.
As long as you have an
come on.
idea of what you're looking at.
It's a hypothesis.
No,
Every single thing we do
exactly.
is a hypothesis, and new data continues to change that hypothesis.
People that take a tree as fact are misunderstanding the process.
Yes.
It's just one interpretation.
It's your current hypothesis given the data you used. And
But
this is the
that's-
thing. Different trees use different data and you cannot directly compare them.
And that's the
That's
main
right.
problem, though, is that everybody takes a specific tree as absolute, set in stone, 10 Commandment style fact. I
Only
mean,
some people.
I was going to say, I don't
not
think...
everybody, but you
I
know.
bring you these 15,
10
10 commandments.
God, that's a good movie.
All right, Mel Brooks jokes.
But
Raising the bar.
So when my
Yeah, better
thesis
than
is done and
Simpsons
I
jokes.
come down off the mountain.
All right. See, I don't think that everyone takes the tree as
No.
gospel fact, but I understand that there is a public misconception that...
The tree is right.
And
Do
I-
not deny the tree.
well, no, I think there is a faction of people, of scientists, who will take
There are
trees as
there are those people,
fact.
I'm not going to name any names, but people have written books and said this, and people have done lectures and said this, where you get your data and then people do it and it's magic and then the result comes out. And that stems from not understanding the process.
Yeah.
Education, and this is the other key thing, even people that are 30-year career sometimes need educating on new methods. You know, if you don't understand it, you're going to misinterpret what you can get out of it.
I agree.
Yep, very true. Is it too much to ask for a break for lunch?
No, I don't think so. Let's at least
finish up
conclude.
the Lycoprion.
Yeah, let's
Yes.
at least conclude with the ratfish.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, is there anything other interesting things to talk about with ratfishes?
Randall?
Well,
As the
as
only
we
person,
stated, they did CT on it. They found there was preserved jaw. They used this to determine it was actually a ratfish.
as opposed to
And
what
the
they thought it was.
whorl is the entire lower jaw.
That is amazing.
That is really
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And once again, new methods leading to new reconstructions. And this is the thing to stress. These really interesting, really bizarre early reconstructions, which I think we'll try to throw a few pictures at you, they're really weird. But at the time, they made sense given the evidence at hand.
Yes.
And here's the other
Yeah.
cool thing that I'd like to bring up. This specimen sat in the collections or on display.
no, it was just in the
It
museum.
was just in the museum
Really?
for
decades.
decades.
The if I remember the paper correctly, it was found in the 1970s, and it was only recently looked at.
I would say, isn't this like Gould's Wonderful Life talking about the Walcott collections of the Burgess Shale?
Probably,
Yes.
yeah.
Sometimes the most interesting and important discoveries are people looking at things that just everyone assumed was fucking there already. So why the hell would we bother?
Some of the most interesting things to look at are things that were described 100 years ago and no one's looked at since.
The animal carrot.
Yeah.
Everybody
that's
thought,
an
hey,
example.
look, shrimp, jellyfish, moss. It took until somebody went into the collections and went, wait, this is one thing.
Well, there was also the fact that Harry was allowed somehow to prepare
one.
through the fossils.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, this is Walcott we're talking about. I mean, Walcott was a big deal for Harvard. So being able to go back, question a lot of his ideas, and also, I mean, there's a certain element of, I'm not going to call it authority worship, but I am going to refer to it as just kind of like an honoring of the dead. Like, Walcott was very important to Harvard's collections.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, he had an awesome name.
Yeah.
Charles Doolittle Walcott.
I mean, I named a trilobite after him. Mostly because the specimens that he used... Never mind.
Mostly because they hadn't been prepared.
Yeah, no, mostly because the specimens that he used were not the things that people thought they were.
Okay. Well, I just like there was some stuff I looked at in Scotland, and the chap had described in 1892 described 3 species from 4 specimens. He'd used the 100 specimens there were to inform his decision, but nobody had looked at them since. They're all one thing.
Yep.
They're all something that was new as well.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
All right.
So, we're going to take a lunch break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion on interpretation of the fossil record.
Oh, that's what we're talking about today?
I thought that's what we were talking about last week.
Oh my god. No, we're
No,
talking
that was
about...
preservation.
Yeah,
Wait,
that was
technically everything is interpretation.
Everything links
Technically,
together.
that never happened because it was the intro podcast that didn't exist, but it will exist because we're just going to put them up at the same time.
Okay.
Whatever.
All right. See you all in I guess 3 seconds
For
for
you guys, it'll be instantly. For us, who knows?
Now enjoy the artistic silence of Curtis Congreve.
Oh fuck! You really had to let them know that I was the one playing guitar.
That's right. So they know where to send the complaints.
Yeah, pretty much.
Hello, and welcome back to This Path the Podcast, brought to you by Amanda's...
Sobriety?
Oh yeah. You might want to get on the mic.
Yeah,
Like your position. Just move it. It's fine. It can go wherever it wants.
Bring it
That's
closer
true.
to
We
your
have,
face.
We have these mics
We have
now.
a substantial upgrade from last
Yeah.
time. We have pop filters, so we're
Yeah.
not going to get that annoying pa sound.
Right.
Over
Purple
there.
People Eater.
Well,
Right.
that was just us
People
being
eaters.
loud.
Well, I mean, the one thing I've noticed is because I can see all you guys, I tend to look at you, and I don't know how much that has an effect on my mic directionality. If you get the Doppler effect, then that's because I'm currently
I
swinging
just
from
need to
side
look
to
in
side.
one direction because I don't need to see what's over
Wait.
here.
So all you need to see is one direction, and then you're happy.
No.
Anyway, the
Wait,
way
are we
I do
just
not
making-
need to see the band that has chlamydia from koalas.
Wait, what?
What? Liam from One Direction has chlamydia.
He has
From
koala
koalas?
chlamydia.
Wait, what was that from
That's
koalas?
what you picked out of that.
It was chlamydia.
Okay.
It was chlamydia.
Yeah, koalas have chlamydia. All koalas, which is one of my favourite facts. I believe, Amanda, I told you this.
Yes, you did.
yeah.
I remember this, yes.
I came down and cracked our next tube because you were talking with Crystal about Australia, and I just said, do you know all koalas, or most koalas, have chlamydia? And then I got up and left because I had nothing else to say.
Right. Anyway, so I have a mea culpa moment. I mistakenly attributed the lichens to Silacker, but they're actually Retallick, who is the guy who works on fossil soils. That's why I said Silacker's right, fossil soil stuff. He doesn't work on fossil soils. He works on marine trace fossils. Anyway, yeah. Now we
This might
fixed
be
that.
one of those rare instances of us fact-checking ourselves.
Well,
Yeah.
no, we didn't fact check.
Actually, no,
she remembered.
I just remembered, yeah.
As we said earlier, there is no fact-checking in this podcast.
Well, there is. I mean, I will sometimes go on Wikipedia and tell you that I was in fact right.
Yes, because Wikipedia is a reliable source.
It is when I change it to make it right.
Yeah, I was going to
Oh,
say, especially
Jesus
when James
Christ.
edits it to his own appreciable needs.
Well, I mean, you just need to,
Worldview.
it will get corrected, but for the 2 minutes somebody's checking it, or say what I said.
Right.
This is one of those awkward pauses.
So what are we
So
talking?
James, what's the second paper
Okay,
about?
so this surprisingly didn't really make it onto mainstream news, although it was in a couple of other websites. This has been going around the various Twitter and Facebook spheres, and I'm quite, I'm interested in it because it's things that I work on and things that I'm interested in. So there was this paper came out in Nature dealing with Cambrian arthropods or stem arthropods, especially relating to the head appendages. There are these things called fusionhyoids, which have been recognized for quite a while as you're possibly one of the best out groups in terms of
What's that
crown
angry look?
The X is pronounced an SH. Xian.
So it's Fuxianhua.
Fuxian.
I'm sorry, but
what
this is a Latinized name, so it's pronounced fusionhyoids because you Latinize everything.
No, you don't.
Yes, you do.
All the species names are in Latin.
All the species names are in Latin, but what if they do have a Chinese root?
When it
Doesn't matter.
No, when it
It's in
comes to
Latin.
Chinese names, as far as I understand,
ICZN says no.
well, it's annoying.
They're only now discussing, allowing in Germanic and
You're
What
joking.
you can't use
Really. So if you
you
were to
could
do something
use
in
random-
Greek, it would still need to be pronounced as though it were Latin.
I mean, well, this is the anomalocaris on anomalocaris issue, isn't it?
Point. You're right.
As far as I was always told that Greek was acceptable.
Greek's acceptable, but basically, technically it doesn't really matter how you pronounce it so much. I mean, I say Deinonychus when it's apparently Deinonychus.
it's both.
Wait, how can it be both?
Depends on who you ask.
Like
When I was a kid,
Diplodocus and Diplodocus.
Yeah.
And that's weird because people will say Diplodocus, but then they'll call them Diplodocids.
Yeah.
Is it a little bit
Diplodocus.
weird that we're basically debating the pronunciation of a language that's been dead for hundreds of years?
I mean, the thing with the
Occasionally you have,
ICZN
the
names,
one person who can speak it.
the thing with the ICZN names these days as well is that it doesn't strictly have to be, as long as it's pronounceable, it can be random letters strung together. There's a Euryptid called Orcanopterus, which is a conglomeration of Ordovician, Canadian, and then Terras, which is the Greek for wing.
There's a trilobite that's been named Sex Pistols Eye.
Han Solo.
Yeah.
The genus
Yeah.
is Han, and it's the only one because it's from the Han province, it's the only one, Han Solo.
That is the best name.
Nice.
The best.
So fusionhyoids, and
Fuxianhuids.
Fuel Shan Ha.
I'm sorry, if you can't pronounce it because it's a regional pronunciation, it's a bad name. It's one of the things I got told.
Or people should learn how to properly pronounce.
I'm sorry, we spent a long time making sure we would never have to do that.
Again, we're getting into how's India going, Britain?
How's Hong Kong?
Hong Kong, no, Hong Kong's doing well. I think we sold it back or something, or we gave it. One of the
You
Something
gave
like
it
that.
back in
It was-
'97.
It was literally a 99-year lease.
Yep.
No, seriously.
100-year at least.
99. No, it was 99.
Because 100 years, I mean, there's
Was
wars
there an option to
associated with
buy?
that. Why do you want to buy it? Anyway,
It's a special economic zone now, so.
Yeah.
so we just lost our credit rating in England. We've gone down. Now on the same level as you.
Welcome.
Welcome to the AA credit
My
rating.
parents are complaining that they're trying to transfer money, and it's not as good as it was.
Pretty much.
But it sucks slumming it with you guys. So yeah, fusionhyoids, and basically there's a big debate because one of the big things for arthropod evolution is what the composition of the head is, and fusionhyoids clearly have these two antenna-like appendages at the front, and then there are these things behind them that up until now, through the head shield, they have looked like amorphous sacs. People have described toposopodomeres, but the thing was that none of these lines went all the way through, so they just looked like they were folds.
Okay.
So a lot of people, including myself, interpreted them as gut diverticulae, which means that the head only had a single appendage. And then there are these
You mean
issues.
a single pair of appendages.
When I say
Yeah,
appendage,
single
I mean
pair of appendages,
when I say
yeah.
appendage, I'm shortening appendage pair. It's unfortunate shorthand.
Legs.
Getting
even more shorthand. Legs.
Legs.
well, considering these are antennae,
I was gonna say, actually, yeah, you're right. With arthropods, it
Appendages
could be
are-
legs, it could be gills, it could be antennae. They're
Yeah.
all sort of,
Yeah, that's a fair point.
they're podomeres that
and technically, when you talk about appendage pairs, a lot of the time they're biramous, so it should be appendage quadroons.
yeah,
Wait,
yeah. I
What is a
mean,
quadroon?
Is that the legitimate word for that?
No, I think quadroon might be a racial term.
I don't. I hope not.
I really hope not. I think
We
I might have heard that
apologize
on.
to anyone
I
who
might have
takes
heard it on
offense at the
Archer.
words quadroon.
I might mean quadrate, but I might have heard quadroon on Archer.
No,
which mean-
because quadrate. Is
No,
bone
you're
and
right.
lower
I think
jaw.
I also heard quadroon on Archer.
Okay, well, I don't mean quadroon. I mean
Oh, they used it to describe Lon at one point.
Okay, I mean quadrates or quadrangles.
He's very drunk at this point,
Of
so if
course.
he's being
Look,
horribly racist...
I'm not very, very drunk. Hey! I do not get racist when I drink too much.
I'm just saying, there's certain things that come out.
This is not an exercise in getting evidence for me to be arrested, Curtis. Look, I didn't realise this beer was 9.4%.
Good point.
Have you just Googled quadroon?
That's a hell of a way to find out that Ferris Jenkins died.
Oh.
No, I just was looking up something and Ferris Jenkins is dead? When did that happen?
Who's Ferris Jenkins?
Oh, he's a very famous vertebrate paleontologist.
Okay.
It goes in threes. You know that.
No, it doesn't.
No, it does.
No, it doesn't.
No, seriously. When
James, it's called the Celebrity Assassin. They just go around and kill all these celebrities, and then they slowly rotate back.
late last year. That's.
Oh, yeah, Jan Bergstrom died last year as well. He was a big arthropod guy.
Anyway,
This is the human desire to find patterns.
It goes in threes.
Is this
Patterns
podcast...
are not always true.
Is this podcast eventually going to go all conspiratorial?
No.
maybe. Anyway, okay, sorry. Continue.
Only when you get David Duchovny here.
He's a hand model. Zoolander jokes.
Wow.
He's a sex addict.
Oh, and Californication? Good choice.
No, in real life, he's a sex addict.
Oh, well, never mind
That's
then.
why he had to take a break from Californication because of it. I'm not even joking. I can't watch Californication. It just makes me jealous. But anyway.
Chinese arthropod thing.
Yeah,
Chinese
let's get to
arthropods.
topic.
Let's get to the topic of Chinese arthropods. So, not everyone. So there are these other arthropods, which are Cambrian things called megachirons, or great appendage arthropods, and these are characterized by having these big raptorial grasping appendages on the front of the head.
Anomalocaris is a.
Yes.
Or a novel. No, wait.
Is it not anymore?
If you're a phoneticist, Anomalocaris probably isn't an arthropod. It's a stem arthropod, and megachirons are probably, at least if not true arthropods,
By
according
the
to some
original
people, the
description
sister group
of
to
great
arthropod.
appendage
Yeah, they all share great
arthropod.
appendages, and this paper and one that I'm trying to get published to talk about the fact that great appendages are not all the same thing.
And although it's potentially just belaboring a point, but even though it's STEM, and by STEM we mean like on the line to modern arthropods, it probably also was its own clade. I mean, we see anomalocarids that persist all the way into the Devonian. So
That's true.
they had a lot of diversity in them. They just died out.
That's another discussion of the various faunas being rubbish, which is something I'd dearly love to talk about in the future.
Oh, you mean the
evolutionary
Cambrian
faunas?
faunas?
Yeah.
That's a very important point.
But so the thing with this was people have suggested that these appendages, or if they were not gut diverticulae, were the same as the great appendages, and this is where they came from. What this paper shows, basically, what they've got is some of the fossils have had the top of the head flipped over, so you can see the underside of the head perfectly, and you can see that these were not gut diverticulae. These were appendages, and this is very interesting. I'm completely convinced this is something that I've thought was wrong for a long time, and now I realise that this is actually what it is. This is how things progress.
For the listeners, you might want to describe gut diverticula.
Yeah, what a gut diverticula
Okay,
is.
these are sacs that are often, oddly enough, associated with arthropods are segmented, as we know, and each segment has the possibility to have a pair of limbs coming off it, and associated at the same time, you'll get gut diverticulae, which are basically offshoots of the main gut tract that allow for processing of food and stuff like this.
Kind of like an appendix, but useful.
Kind of like a useful appendix.
So, the past appendix.
Yes.
The appendix of the soul, if we're going back on our previous conversation.
Interestingly
right?
enough, I mean, we call these segments somites. Mammals or vertebrates have somates too. That's what each vertebrae is.
Yeah.
Well, they're serial homologs, which means they're parts of the body that are repeated through development. So, like the vertebrae is it's basically the same part repeated over and over again through developmental
Go back
processes.
far enough, we're all just a single-celled organism.
No, I mean,
Oh, great! Now Randall is waxing eloquent.
Technically, everything's a parapod.
We're
And
all
a
just
joke.
made of star stuff.
Really? We started with descent with modification, and now we're all stars. You're going the hippy dippy bullshit.
No. He's going
Do
full
not insult
Scientologist.
Carl Sagan.
Okay, Carl Sagan's fine, and auto-tuned Carl Sagan is amazing. But
I love that song. Not the point. Anyway, sorry, James.
so
Continue.
gut
I
and the
don't know that
diverticula
song.
that diverticulates.
That MacGyver?
Yeah, that MacGyverticulates. The parts of the arthropod that are able to escape a room with a lighter and a
Paperclip.
paperclip. Yeah.
Dear MacGyver, we're stuck in a podcast. Save us.
Here's the interesting thing, right? So MacGyver joins Stargate, and then they get trapped in tons of rooms.
True. There's at one point where MacGyver actually gets trapped in a Groundhog Day loop. He can't find his way out, even though he has a paperclip and a lighter.
Well, MacGyver gave up all of his abilities when he joined Stargate.
Okay, that
Okay,
that
guys,
was part
stop!
That was part of the contract, right? When he joined
Yes.
the military. He
God
had
damn it!
Quiet, James wants to talk about something he's interested
Oh,
in.
science.
Right.
Fuck you and your science.
It's not just that, but I know that's going to go on for about an hour.
Good point. Keep going.
So this shows that what I thought were gut diverticula are actually appendages. I'm very excited about this because it's very rarely I'll admit I was wrong.
This should be noted. This
Yes.
is historic.
As opposed to the first podcast where he says he never tells a lie.
No,
No,
if
no,
you're
you
wrong,
can
that's
be
not a
wrong.
lie.
Yeah.
Randall, you're the worst kind of scientist. Somebody's wrong, they're a lying bastard, and you need to destroy their career. Well, fuck you, Randall.
I agree with James on
That's
this
right. I
Um,
will end you both.
Hey, I'm safe.
Well, that's because he's not competing with you. He doesn't do vertebrates.
That's true. I'm safe.
He's just going to shoot us with his laser. He was mostly carbon. Anyway.
You need some cheap LASIK, James? I could do that.
Oh no! Do you want to know a funny thing this morning? I woke up and I was vaguely groggy because I hadn't had a good enough sleep.
Well, considering the amount of alcohol you drank the night before.
Dude, this is day 7 of your hangover.
And shut up. And I've got a whiteboard down at the end of my bedroom, which I write stuff on that I need to do. Well, when I went home over Christmas, I got new glasses, and I've been able to see way better since then. So I woke up and I was looking at the whiteboard and getting really annoyed because I couldn't see it. Because in my head, in my half asleep state, I assumed because I had new glasses, my eyesight was good now, and that I should be able to read it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the kind of person who's going to be teaching your children when they come to college.
No. That seems like a horrible
That
public
is-
safety announcement.
That assumes I'm going to get a job.
Remember, all of your teachers are humans too.
I know
That's true.
teachers, and do you know what? None of the people my age that are teachers I'd want teaching my children.
But they're probably great teachers.
They probably are, but they're also... Yeah.
They're human beings, James. Just like in science, we're all human beings just doing a weird fucking job.
This is true. I get paid to play in dirt.
I get paid to shoot lasers.
Yeah,
Hey, Amanda, do you ever eat the dirt?
No? That's Steve's job.
I was say, I get paid to go to interesting locations where I spend most of my time locked in a basement
Like
looking at
MacGyver.
rocks that nobody gives a fuck about.
You
Trying
can
to
come
get a
out
hold
in
of
3
MacGyver
days.
to get you out of the basement.
I think I pretty much just get paid to drink.
No, that's just what you're doing now. You'll drink pro bono.
Point. I mean,
Not really pro bono. If you
I
just
work
pay
on
for
fossils and stuff. But yeah. So the
Chinese thing.
yeah.
I think that's really all. I think we've exhausted the
No, we
subject,
haven't. I haven't even
actually.
got into it yet.
He hasn't even started
Oh,
discussing
God.
there are important evolutionary ramifications
There are.
for the
I mean,
actual limbs.
One of the
Right.
cool things is that because they've also found supposed brain material in another specimen, we can tell that while these things are limbs, they are not great appendages.
Yeah.
Okay, so keep in mind, I have no idea what the hell.
Yeah. Let's go back
Okay.
and just describe
How-
what
how
you're usually
can-
saying when you're saying a great appendage.
Yeah,
and
how
what does
can
it
you
mean?
tell the difference?
Okay, so getting into the arthropod brain here, and I'm sorry, there's going to be a bit of terminology associated with this.
Okay, well, just if anything complicated comes up, just
Okay.
just try and
Arthropods have brains that are divided into 3 parts.
explain. Okay,
The first part is called the protocerebral segment.
and it does what? If it's not necessary, just
Eyes, I
Eyes,
guess.
okay.
Eyes come off that.
Eyesight.
Then you've got your jutocerebral segment, and this is where we know the antennae come from.
Okay.
And then your tritocerebral segment. And for a long time, there's a discussion because they're arthropods are related to things like onychophorans, which have these frontal appendages on the protocerebral segment.
What is an onychophoran?
Velvet worms, sac-like things with legs
Okay.
that have parapods, maybe.
Little. Yeah.
Maybe not.
I'd ask you to define a parapod, but
They're serial blobs that stick off segments. I know this
Nobody
because Paul Lynn
really
taught me one.
yeah, no one really knows. That's why I didn't ask you.
It's okay. I got asked that for my master's. My master's advisor asked me a question there wasn't an answer to, and I gave him an answer. And then he went, "Wow, that's really interesting. Write that answer down," and then disappeared. But the main interesting thing was that with Fuchsian-Hewitt's
Shian, you said it right.
Okay.
You said it right. He said it right, everybody.
That's how you actually say it, except I'm a lazy speaker normally.
So it's
Fuchsian-Hewitt's.
Fuchsian-Hewitt's.
Fuchsian-Hewitt's, yeah.
Fuchsian-Hewitt's.
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 Shian.
I agree.
Fuchsian.
Because it's
In
FUX.
case anybody hasn't been able to tell, I am actually somewhat fluent in Chinese. So
Fluid or fluent?
fluent.
Both.
What did I say?
Fluid.
Oh God, I'm sorry. I haven't even been drinking. I swear to God.
She hears Chinese and she just melts.
Anyway, sorry. Continue.
Like water.
So, interestingly,
have to be like
at least I'm not using my short term, which is when I'm writing it down, it's FUX or fuxers, is how I shorthand it.
I like that shorthand. Let's
That's
just use
good.
that.
But yes, so there was an argument that maybe if this appendage that they now know as appendage was a real limb, the antenna maybe were protocerebral, so equivalent to frontal appendages, and this limb was jutocerebral. This is important because the great appendages are all jutocerebral.
Okay.
But because we've got the brain, we know.
So again, what is a great appendage?
Okay, so the great appendage is found on arthropods like Leancoilia and anomalocarids. They might not be homologous. We're not sure yet. They might have evolved multiple times. And this is why this is a very important question. And these are enlarged raptorial appendages which have spikes or elongated fingers on them that are limited to only maybe 6 segments or up to about 15. They're very short, very robust, and they're used probably to grab prey. And it was suggested that these appendages on Fuchsian-Hewitt were similar to great appendages, but because we've got the brain, and now that these are shown to be appendages, we know they're tritocerebral, and therefore they're not the same as the great appendages, which are jutocerebral. So this is why it's a very interesting thing.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
And this all goes to show that, as data changes, interpretations change.
That's true.
Yep.
And also, with more detailed analysis, our homology statements change, which then in turn will affect our
Phylogenies.
yes, our assessment of our phylogenies.
As technology improves, as does our interpretations.
I mean, and this was literally a case of they found new fossils that are preserved differently, but like with Helicopterion,
good save there, James.
that was literally a case of new technology helping us, and a lot of the new things we found with the Burgess Shale is we're applying new technology to old specimens and seeing things that weren't there before.
Which reminds me, I need to talk to you about ramen at some point.
Okay.
It's 99 cents and it's pretty cheap and rubbish. But
Yeah, no. To be fair, you can get the really good stuff. It's a little bit more expensive, but
Creamy chicken, the Maruchan creamy chicken ramen used to be like gourmet eating when I was a freshman in the dorm.
I might use ramen, but I've never eaten ramen.
I've never
So
eaten
is that
ramen.
mostly 2 graphite bands?
Probably, knowing what goes into it.
Hi, ramen spectroscopy jokes.
We're going to make a ramen paper on
Randall,
ramen.
what does ramen stand for?
Do you know what
Ramen doesn't stand for anything.
Ramen
It's not
is
an acronym.
I say ramen is the name of the
It's
guy
the
who
opposite of Raylight. Ramen is actually named after the Indian scientist in 1928 who won the Nobel Peace Prize or Nobel Prize for this. Described the effect. It's
it's an effect of a laser hitting
you in a
an
minute.
object.
no.
No, all right.
Lasers were only adopted because they were able to keep the
Ramen
frequency
sensor.
constant.
Okay.
The Raman effect is when light hits an object, photons are produced. Photons which have the same wavelength as the inducing light are Rayleigh scattered. photons that have a different wavelength than the inducing light are Raman scattered.
Okay. And that is diagnostic of specific chemicals, and that's how you can use it.
It's diagnostic of the molecular bonds and the atomic weights.
Okay.
I wasn't paying attention to any
No,
of that.
I was actually doing something.
This is why I went off on a tangent.
One moment, geochemistry cheer.
Geochemistry is interesting.
I have a minor in chemistry. I was really bad
Seriously?
at chemistry. Yeah, I was
Cool.
really bad at it. And I worked for the department, the chemistry department at Lake State, my old university, for 2.5 years.
I don't understand.
I'm still really bad at chemistry.
I don't understand the major-minor system because we just do one subject, although I did two because I was stupid. I guess
So wait, you don't have a major minor system in England? It's
no,
just
you just do your
focus on
degree.
Okay.
Well,
Mine
that's
was
what it is in pretty much the rest of the world.
Yeah.
it's mine. Mine was geology with biology. It's basically your degree is our A levels, which we finished when we were 18.
Okay.
Oh.
Because you have to do like a maths component stuff like that. I haven't done maths since I was
Basic
16,
stuff, yeah.
which is why I can't add up.
James, I want to write down a formula. Can you solve it?
No. I'll do
Okay.
what I did in biometry, which is write a sad face, and then eventually have the lecturer tell me that I need to try.
Do or do not. There is no try.
So I thought there's one thing that's always
I hear
tickled
that.
me, and I thought I'd show this to you guys.
Oh, Lord.
Talking about reconstructions and reinterpretations, you all know what a conodont is, right?
Of
Yeah.
course.
So conodonts, by and large, are found with these little phosphatic elements that are spiky, rib-like things with spines coming off them. And these days we know they're all part of the mouth. Not that they've got a jaw, but they're part of the mouth. And this, and we'll throw this up on the thing as well. This is what a conodont looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a vertebrate.
Yeah,
with a
it's a
backbone.
chordate.
It's a
Yeah.
chordate.
Yeah, it's not a true vertebrate.
It has a notochord, but it doesn't have a vertebra.
Yeah.
That's right.
And they got this because they found soft body preservation, complete individuals, and they know it looked like this. Do you know what they thought it looked like before they had this?
A giant toilet roll.
They thought it was a bog roll. This is how they reconstructed it, based purely off the elements.
What?
For everyone who's not from Great Britain, a bog roll means a toilet paper roll.
Oh my god.
Think,
They-
go into the bathroom, look at a toilet paper roll. Now imagine that with spines.
No. Imagine it was covered with a thick moss, and that's
It's what that
basically what
technically is some denticles.
they're tentacles.
And so I'll throw this up on the description as well. And literally, all they had was the spikes, the various elements, and they thought, well, it's probably filter feeding. What is the most logical shape for an animal that just does filter feeding in the pelagic realm? That's what they came up with.
Well, okay, to be fair, they were basing it off of a sponge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just so happens that it looks exactly like a toilet paper roll.
Yeah. But that's sort of, as I'm saying, you know.
Juvenile humor.
I mean, when Harry Whittington first redescribed, I'm blanking on its name, Opabinia, which is that bizarre thing with a
The
Hoover nose and
the
5
Oh,
eyes.
great
yeah.
appendage claw.
Well, okay, is that
Thing.
actually a great appendage? I mean, as far
It's
as...
homologized with a great
in the
appendage.
classical description of great appendage,
Yes, it is.
It is.
It's Opabinia is included in Radiodonta alongside anomalocaris.
Yes.
Okay.
Even
Yes.
though they're most
Well,
likely
it's got
not
lateral
related.
flaps down the body as well. I mean,
Got lateral flaps and 5 eyes and a weird sort of like
Snoz.
basically claw game kind of nose that comes off of it.
It was the Hoover of the Cambrian.
it's interesting. I mean, I suspect that there's more to be found from this. I mean, I don't think what we currently know about it is all we're ever going to know about it. It probably fits in somewhere that we've not quite worked out yet.
Yeah.
But
and to be fair, a lot of the early Cambrian stuff does fit into places that we just...
Yeah.
It's so weird because it's the beginnings.
yeah, or at least the first time you get these things preserved.
First preservation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are weird clades like the
And that-
anomalocarids, which are probably, or anomalocarids, which are probably a unique group that just didn't make it.
But the same thing can be said for Eurypterids and trilobites.
Yeah, totally.
It's just
And-
because it's older, we think it's weirder.
Well, yeah, and I definitely think that there's a certain element of familiarity. Like, we can look at a trilobite and go, oh, it kind of looks like a horseshoe crab. Again, phonetics, not the
Yeah.
actual evolution
Yeah,
of them.
I know I was going to.
Trilobites are just aquatic pill bugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you refer to them? What do you refer to them, James, as the mice of the
The mice of the
Paleozoic?
Paleozoic. They're everywhere. There's tons of them. Do your experiments on them. Nobody really cares. though.
Damn, I can't
But they're
remember
pretty.
the story exactly.
Some of them aren't.
Okay,
One
okay,
that
yeah.
Larry
Well,
had told it was there's a
I don't wanna talk
modern
over this.
species that has the juveniles that look like
Oh,
trilobites.
yeah,
Trilobite
yeah.
larva
Yes.
in a species of beetle.
Yes.
Yes.
Except they don't. They look like euthocarcinoids.
They don't look anything like You mean the trilobites that they find in Hawaii? Those things.
They're
the
red.
bugs?
They've got six. They've got 3 segments, which are diplopodous, and then they've got a thorax of multi-segmented things. Look exactly like these things called euthocarcinoids.
Yeah, they don't really look like trilobites. I mean, they look like trilobites to a like casual observer, but
Well,
anyone who works
that's
on
what it-
trilobites
They
would
look
look
like
at them and
trilobites
say,
to a biologist.
Schmuck.
What?
So they took these juveniles, they put them in this sediment they brought up from the deep sea to play a joke. Hey, look, you found living trilobites.
Oh, I heard about that.
That's right. I remember this story. Who was that?
I can't.
Some asshole.
No, God. I remember that story.
You can Google them. Hang on.
No, it's,
Okay, we'll throw a picture in.
we'll figure it out and get back to y'all later.
Actually, weirdly enough, if you type in trilobite,
There
you
what
usually
comes
get that
up.
picture of
Yeah.
that. It's like a Hawaiian or some Pacific island kind of.
Yeah, it's a
bug.
it's an insect of some form. I mean, and then the horseshoe crab larvae are referred to as trilobite larvae because they look trilobate. The trouble is all arthropods are trilobate.
I would say the problem is the definition of trilobate when you have so many arthropods.
Well, all arthropods, and I'm not joking, you've got your central axial region where the nervous system and heart goes down, then the pleural regions, all arthropods are trilobate. It's just a lot of them, like insects, don't express it dorsally because they've reduced the pleural region.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I got told that blew my mind when I was first told that many years ago. And
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It explains why you get so many of these, like, morellomorphs and things like that. Morellomorphs are basically soft-bodied things that look surprisingly like a weird cross between... They originally referred to it like lace crabs. They look like trilobite-like forms, but also some slightly crustacean-like forms.
most of them have a single dorsal shield covering the entire dorsal body. Morella is just really weird. And this is another interesting thing. When you find the first one that you assume characterizes the group is weird, that causes psychological havoc for people working on them because they assume that the type specimen or the first specimen is normal. And when it's really weird, man, the problems that causes.
Well, yeah, I mean...
Wait, you're telling me the type specimen was a mutant?
Yeah, I've been working on cerarids, which are a trilobite group, and... Mostly owing to the fact that I don't think anyone really knows what the type specimen is,
Where it is?
well, or where it was collected. Like the getting to the whole, I named something off of Walcott. Most of Cerarus pleuroxanthomus is named after Walcott's collections that he collected from a completely separate location from the actual specimens that Green collected. And they're in a completely different lithology, they're in a completely different area, but it's the best that Whittington had to have when he was redescribing things. Actually, sorry, it's Raymond. Raymond was redescribing the stuff. And so it's the best stuff that they had at the time, but as a result, because there's so much assumed variability of the type, when we've found what we think to be the type specimen in a completely different locality and it doesn't look like the stuff in the Walcott, but because you assume so much variability, you have no idea how much variability is in your whole group, and there's just this assumption that, oh, well, we can probably just synonymize everything into pleuroxanthomus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, getting the type specimen, having a strange type specimen can be seriously problematic. The same thing as if you have a type specimen that is incomplete, and then you have other more complete stuff.
You can't
Well,
really...
it's
And then you
It's
find
really
out
pain
that
in
maybe
the ass to
It-
redefine your type specimen.
and it's also really fun if you're basing it on something that's not preserved very well.
yeah,
Yep.
Which we run into, especially in trace fossils, a lot.
yeah.
For
it-
paleo, hey, here's a bone. That's our type
Well,
specimen.
I hate
Yeah.
to say it, but people that name entire genera off a single axial vertebrae, they're doing it wrong. You really shouldn't do that. I would not name an entire species off a limb. You should not name an entire species off a vertebrae.
There are plenty of examples in the past of people naming an entire species off of just an anomalous piece, a little bit.
Ultrasaurus.
Yeah.
That's actually what I had in mind when I was...
Yeah. I mean, admittedly, there might be some situation where, hey, this looks somewhat like this and it has a weird odd apomorphy. By odd apomorphy, I'm using a phylogenetic term to refer to something that looks really weird, something that's unique to this particular group. Yeah. But still,
it's also how you can disprove chronospecies, by the way.
Anyway, so but
That'll be covered later.
But even that, if you only have that little bit and you're assuming a lot about your description based off of that, it's really problematic. You want to try and have something that is representative of the group that you're actually looking at.
Yeah, I mean, with my stuff in the Euryptrids, I cut my teeth on the less well-known suborder Styloneurina. And the type genus and type species is Styloneurus paraiensis. Only one specimen is known. We don't know the front limbs, only the back. And there are some very well-known individuals like Parastyloneurus that we assumed are standard, and they kind of are. But Styloneurus itself is probably closely allied to some very derived, very weird bugs. And it's kind of intriguing getting your head around the fact that what you think of, because I tend to assume, I guess there's an implicit assumption that your type specimen should be kind of characteristic for the group as a whole. It's often not the case, and it's getting your head around that can be really difficult sometimes.
Type specimen is often just the first.
Yeah, and people that name their specific the type specimen, they have a sweet. I've seen this myself. They've got 50 specimens. The first one they find, which is the worst piece of poorly preserved rubbish you could imagine, they name it.
That's my.
I've gone through a lot of museum collections where I've looked at a lot of their quote-unquote paratype being just other things that they collected when they collected the type, and I wonder why the fuck they named that their type, because they've got these beautifully preserved types. They got these beautifully preserved specimens that could be great types, but they got this little piece of shit that they're calling their type specimen.
Well, I can give you an example of a really shitty type followed by really nice paratypes that was just temporal. They didn't find the really nice paratype. Microraptor.
But it's not a
The
paratype
original-
if it wasn't described in this first paper.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about things that were actually... paratype specifically has to be defined in the first paper. You're
In the
referring
first-
to, you're referring to
Alongside
what's
the
called
holotype.
topotype.
Topotype.
Material is
Sorry.
collected from the same locality,
That's
but it's
right.
not in the original paper.
That's right.
No, I'm talking about paratype material, and this is just a mindset in the past of the first thing you find and identify that it's a new species. That's the type, but that's problematic because the type is the thing you're supposed to be comparing to for the whole species. And when you're looking at something that's kind of crappy for your type, that's a problem.
Well, one of the things we have to keep in mind here is back in the good old days, Fossil Wars, it was who could publish first. It didn't really matter.
And
quality.
who could publish the most as well.
So you get into like the Cope and Moore kind of...
Cope and
Cope and Marsh, sorry.
Hey,
Yeah.
they're over on the other side of the hill. We're going to go throw dynamite at them.
They threw dynamite at each other?
Yes, they
Yes.
did.
That's
But they
amazing.
blew up each other's. They found socks of each other's fossils in the field and blew them up. So
Yeah,
they
they
wouldn't have access
would
to
literally
them.
They would-
blow up.
If
When
they,
they
if they
left
couldn't
a quarry-
if they couldn't excavate it, they'd destroy it.
When they left a quarry, they would dynamite the hell out of it so the other guy couldn't come in and keep digging.
And sadly, science is done by human beings as opposed to logical robots.
The logical robots that would say none of this matters and then nuke the Earth.
Okay, you are true. The logical robots would probably immediately assume that all of this is pointless because they
Die,
don't.
meat bags.
The irrational human desire to know is far more important.
This is the trouble. The human condition is tied into everything. There are good points and bad points to this, and you have to take both together.
I've always, a friend of mine used to wax philosophic, wishing that he could always just remove the irrational side of life and just be strictly rational. And I thought that would be so ridiculously inhuman, that the irrational informs so much of what we are as individuals that it's so fucking horrifying.
It would
to
be
assume.
so boring. I mean,
Yeah.
I like the rationality of finding an answer, but the fact that I want to find those answers is irrational.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you should just be content with what you have right now. That's rational.
Rational is boring.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I'm rational.
That
Yeah, and you're
explains a lot.
boring, Randall. You are the most boring person on this podcast.
Yes, I am.
Randall, the most boring person on this podcast.
And when James appears next week or in 2 weeks' time with a broken leg and a barely working voice box,
You'll know Randall was especially boring this week.
Say, well, we'll know it's not Ed's fault this time.
considering Randall thought it'd be fun to eat corn grown from Curtis.
Yeah, Randall's the one we gotta watch. As I said, in the Revolution, we just kill Randall first because he's the one who's gonna go all Napoleon on our asses.
This is why we never.
Thanks, George Orwell.
This is why we never play Risk.
Actually, the reason we
I
never
have diplomacy. That's even worse.
diplomacy is great because you all gang up and there's one guy that realizes that nobody likes him, which was my. Which happened to someone I know in a game we played.
It happened to James.
No, he was gonna say his brother.
Oh, God damn it, Curtis. Well, whenever I play Risk, I can't play Risk because I always play with people I know, and they just realise halfway through the game. So we're all at war, Who's James at war with? Oh, James is allied with everyone.
James is the one who's going to manipulate us all.
And then they just gang up on me because they realise that I'm just going to let them fight each other and then sweep the board.
See, this is why Randall wanted to have you as his second in command.
That wouldn't work. That wouldn't work for very obvious reasons. One, I cannot do what I'm told.
Shut up, Squealer.
Two, I don't like giving orders. No, I don't like taking orders.
I was gonna say, wait a minute, step back, reverse that.
See, originally he referred to me as Boxer, but then he went and called me the goat. I can't remember.
No,
what
it was
no.
a donkey.
What's the donkey?
Oh
What's
no,
the
I think you'd be more like the.
The donkey who knows what's going on but can't do anything about it because everyone else won't fucking listen to him.
Yeah. So what does that make? Does Randall think he's Napoleon?
Yeah, Randall thinks he's Napoleon. Fuck
So
yeah.
what you thought? What Squealer or Snowball?
Squealer. He thought you were Squealer.
Really?
I was either Snowball, Boxer, or the goat. Or the donkey.
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 Do I even want to know which one I am?
There's a female
geese, I
dog in it,
guess.
right?
Oh, thanks.
You're one of the geese?
No, you're the cow. You're the cow that can read. She can read, but she reads out the things, but doesn't understand why
That's
the
right,
change
yeah.
is important.
Okay.
All animals
I'll-
are equal, but
I'll
some
try-
some
Animals
animals
are
more
more equal than others.
The cow is
Animals shall not sleep in beds with sheets.
Yeah.
the
Animals
yeah.
should not kill others without
Without just
Without
cause.
just cause. Without just cause.
You're the one that can read.
Okay.
You can see the truth, but you don't understand it.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So you could be what's the cow's name? Maybell?
That sounds right.
That's not well.
You know what? It just sounds like a cow name, so
Yeah,
we're
it
gonna fucking
does.
go with it. Whatever.
Anyway,
So is there
what
anything
were-
else about the Fushan Hua?
Xian.
Fushan.
Well, also, I just want to see Amanda's reaction to this. Shenzhang.
No. So what James is referring to is a Lagerstätten in China. It's a Cambrian.
What is a Lagerstätten?
Motherlode.
Site of special
Okay,
preservation.
now you're being reductive. Lagerstätten does literally mean motherlode, but
Motherlode.
when we're
It's
referring
a-
to it in
It's
paleontological
either-
terms,
It's
There's-
a motherlode of fossils.
It's a
There's
site of
conservat or concentrat. Concentrat is lots of fossils. Conservat is lots of not lots,
Special-
but
special
well-preserved
preservation, yeah.
fossils.
so the Burgess Shale Formation, the
Both.
Solenhofen.
yes,
There are lots of
Hansrück-
sites that are,
Hansrück,
both.
The
Obviously
Shenzhang,
just
the
one or the
Yunnan,
other.
Kaili.
Johor, yeah, all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So James was just pointing out the fact that everyone pronounces the name of this Lagerstätten incorrectly. If you're, and I always have to look at it because I can never remember the exact spelling.
CHENGJIANG.
So yeah, it's
Correct.
It's actually supposed to be Chengjian. I could be getting the tones wrong because I don't actually have the characters in
She's
front
speaking
of me.
with a Michigan accent.
Shut up.
I'm sorry, when our Chinese
But everyone says
colleague
Our
says
Chinese-
Shenzhang, I'm going to go with him.
Then again, our Chinese guy can't use chopsticks. So
Wait, what Chinese colleague are you talking about?
Whose question is that for?
both
All
of
of you.
I'm just trying to remember his name.
When?
Oh, you got Xi Pai?
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got that's not important.
Oh, doesn't his name start with D?
I feel like I caused a really bad problem, man.
I
You
think
just-
his
you
name
just-
starts with D.
Amanda, why don't you just continue
there's
with
a
what
T-
you were
there's
a
talking
T and a D.
about?
Curtis is racist against
Anyway.
Chinese people.
How am I? You're the people who can't remember the people that you're talking about.
She's
I
been
have-
there.
I have several Chinese colleagues. I can
It's like I've got a black friend.
shut up, James.
How is India doing, by the way?
They're doing fine.
James, where's
They
your
can't
black
have
friend?
their diamond back, but they're doing fine.
So the important thing to remember when you're dealing with Chinese, looking at Romanizations, which is called Pinyin of Chinese, is that X is pronounced SH. So Xian is Xian. The Q is pronounced CH. So Qing, like Qing Dynasty.
I've got a slight interject question. ZHANG. That's fine.
Zhang.
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 Okay.
Yeah. So
It's like a J sound.
yeah, it's a J
So it's
sound.
John,
So
okay.
ZH is J. So for instance, the director of the Institute of Vertebrate Paleontology and Paleoanthropology in Beijing, his name is Zhou Zhonghe. So there's two instances of the ZH sound. And the vowel pronunciation is different. It's not what we would think about. So, for instance, E sounds are not E. It's actually more of a U. It's more like
Okay.
And then O is more like an O sound, and U is U. So the vowels are a little bit different than what we're used to. But it does cause a lot of problems, especially when you're dealing with names of localities and things like that. People.
This is aside from the issue that Chinese names, it's the surname that you're referred to
Yes.
by and large. So for a lot, until they started anglicising it directly, a lot of people just had their publications listed by their first name in Western research because nobody knew the naming structure.
Yeah, nobody
Right.
knew that
Yeah.
it was inversed,
And
that the
the
first
worst
name
thing
is your last
now
name.
they've actually made it worse
Yeah.
because I know that you need to cite the first name, but now because they know that Westerners don't know that, some of them flip it, and so I never know which way round it's actually meant to be.
I can help you with that.
It's syllables, right?
Right.
First syllable, one
most-
syllable is first name.
Most of the time, the surname is one syllable. One
Yeah,
character.
All right, yeah.
Okay.
Like
fail.
the graduate student we refer to as Lee is not actually named Lee.
Lee. That's his last
Yeah.
name, his surname. That sometimes falls apart. There's a couple of
But when Vietnamese
areas-
start coming in as well, it gets difficult.
yeah. And with Japanese, it's completely different. But with Chinese, you generally have a one-syllable surname and a two-syllable given name. Like I said, that does fall apart. There are a couple of areas where you have a two-syllable given name or surname, but that's very rare. So yeah. Yeah, that's so the more you know, that's
This has been Chinese with Amanda.
So besides that, is there anything that you wanted to talk about this particular fossil?
I mean, I've had my spiel. I've talked for ages.
I mean,
what do you
it's
guys
a
think?
fascinating idea that we can actually get potentially this neurological link up to show that our homology statements or our statements of what is evolutionarily derived and what is not evolutionarily derived could potentially be wrong in these cases.
Yeah.
So how were they describing this in the paper that it was a link between the Eurypterids and the Lobopods?
What?
Wait,
It's in the paper.
What page?
First page.
so on the one
First
paper that we
column.
know James should really know something about because it
Second
mentions
paragraph.
Eurypterids. And,
Turns out
and-
that he
and
knows
James
No.
really likes Eurypterids
No,
because they are
no.
the greatest animal ever, except for
No,
Dimetrodons and the
You mean
terror birds.
pelecosaurs and
Plesiosaurs and terror
forest
birds.
racids and sharks?
Right. I forgot all the greatest animals of the world.
This is kind of cute. Randall's talking about euarthropods, which is what we call crown group arthropods.
Yeah.
Not Eurypterids. I can see the problem.
Oh, so he just saw a EU and thought it was a Eurypterids?
It's just a memory thing. I can understand it completely. It's like arthropod would be your hypothetical ancestor.
An arthropod?
Yeah, you know they used
Ur?
to construct hypothetical ancestors and call them the this or the that.
Are we getting back
Ur,
into
yeah.
idealized morphology?
Yeah, the crustacea was a really big thing.
So the
yeah,
notion,
I remember that
again,
stuff.
backing up, the notion of idealized morphology is the idea that well before modern evolutionary theory really took hold in the modern synthesis, there was this whole notion of going back in time and trying to develop these hypothetical ancestors that we have no evidence for.
That's right.
But then again, my advisor did 2 years ago name a clade Araneida, which is the sister group to all Araneids.
So the nomenclature still stands, but I mean, to be fair, like
think-
elements of old evolutionary theory or old biological theory still stands. We still have elements of Lamarckianism that we
people-
understand.
The one
and
thing I
don't
will
use it.
say,
And I'm sure that he's just, I don't know how to put it.
it's a name, and
I
it's
was
a
gonna say-
name that fits. It's like before Araneids.
I'm
Makes
sure
sense.
Yes.
he didn't actually mean that it's a stylized clade of pre-Araneids.
No.
One
Although
thing I
he
will
might have
say-
been like preying on that.
Well,
whole
he
notion.
also names it, and he thinks it's paraphyletic in his paper.
So then it's not a real group, and it shouldn't be named if it's paraphyletic.
I get it as paraphyletic as a clade in my analysis.
Paraphyletic means that it doesn't it's a grouping that doesn't include the
your
ancestor
stem.
and all of its descendants. It's a part of the stem. It gives rise to something else. And typically when we're trying to do evolutionary groupings, we're trying to make things that are actually meaningful in an evolutionary sense.
But one thing I will say is, you mentioned German idealized morphology. People tend to dump on the Germans, and they really shouldn't.
I'm not dumping on the Germans.
No,
I'm talking
not
about
you
idealized.
particularly. Other people I know in particular. And one thing I will say is that this whole idea of idealized morphology has made them very good at recognizing morphology and working out homology statements.
I would totally agree with that. Yeah. But when you start to go in for, well, it should be here, but it's not, that's a problem.
Yes.
And that's an old school of idealized morphology that admittedly started in Germany, but is not only home to Germany.
Yeah. And talking of should be there but not, that's the other cool thing about the Fujian-Hewitt paper. You would think, being stem arthropods, or stem euarthropods, that they'd be very, very primitive, there wouldn't be anything specialized about them. The fact they've got these specialized appendages that we thought were gut diverticulate, and they were probably specialized for shoveling food into the mouth, means that maybe these aren't directly on the stem. They're offshoots that have done their own thing and become specialized. That's also very interesting. Cool.
Well, I think this gets into maybe an even greater topic, which is that you never really can find ancestors.
Yeah.
Like, you can assume, but a perfect ancestor, something that has nothing but in phylogenetics, what we refer to as plesiomorphic characters, otherwise known as just only ancestral characteristics, only older characteristics.
It's a single-celled organism.
No, that's simplistic, and that's reductive, and that's not what I'm talking about.
Fuck you, Randall.
I'm talking about something that is like the most ancestral characteristics of a mammal. Like, all the things that define a mammal and is nothing specialized, nothing interesting, nothing unique.
You mean like the
warm-blooded.
hypothetical ancestor they found in that science paper through the phylogeny
Yeah.
that they will never find, but they know what it is.
And we might never find it, because you know what? Evolution is messy, and there might be a weird odd apomorphous or unique characteristic.
And when things speciate, the populations are going to be small, the chances of finding them are so low.
The chances of preservation of this one thing you want, it's astronomical.
Yeah, especially given,
well, but even then, the only
environment that these things live in.
even then, the only way that we can actually, like, was it Plotnick and Nelson?
Platnick.
Plotnick and Nelson. The only way that we can ever, like, in a phylogeny, be at least marginally convinced that we're looking at something that is actually an ancestor is if we have a taxa that has nothing unique about it. It's all ancestral and nothing unique. And the problem with that is that evolution is messy, and even ancestors could have something unique that then is lost in a subsequent generation.
The other problem is people have applied Platnick and Nelson's idea, and then later on it's been shown to see that there was a massive ghost range that means that cannot be the ancestor, even though it's got no autapomorphies.
Yeah, well, that's beside the point, but
This thing's not strange enough.
I was thinking about the horseshoe crab stuff, where something from the Devonian was posited to be the ancestor for all modern horseshoe crabs, those things with a fused body, the thoracitron. Horseshoe crabs have been found, real horseshoe crabs have been found in the Ordovician, so guess what that isn't?
It's not a horseshoe crab
But
ancestor.
it's simple. It has to be, right?
You're being really good at being reductive today.
yeah, Randall's being surprisingly reductive.
Were you educated in England?
Now, out of curiosity, why are you dissing on your own homeland when we've been spending all of our time dissing on I thought you should be defending it at this point.
No, I will defend it, but there is definitely an underlying assumption of uniformitarianism that I did not fully understand.
Quickly, define what uniformitarianism
So
is.
Lyell, I think it stems mainly from Lyell, but the idea that the procedures and processes that happened a million years ago are the same that happen today, and you could just correlate it up, so everything should be a simple line going through.
Another interesting, important element of that is that everything is happening sort of in gradualistic fashion.
Yeah. And that's there are a number of reasons why we can show that that's not the case. Fossil record being one.
Simple modern estimates, modern studies of sedimentation suggest that there is no gradual sedimentation. It tends to be like you got sediment, you got nothing.
Sedimentation.
Well, El Nino and El
Pulses,
Nino
yeah.
disproves that almost conclusively. Anyway,
Exactly. You
You
have
can have
rain,
a-
you don't have rain. You
Yeah.
have rain, you don't have rain. La Nina, El Nino.
Seasonal influx of sediment? No sediment.
But what I didn't appreciate during my undergrad, and you get away from this, when I was doing my master's, I got away from this, but it wasn't until I came here and people actively discussed it with me, I didn't realize that there was this underlying assumption of uniformitarianism and gradualism in a lot of things. It's like we don't really discuss punctuated equilibria other than as an interesting theory, even though a lot of people use it in practice, but those people have all gone on to do doctorates and have done their own reading.
So is the assumption there that punctuated equilibrium is saltationism? Because that's that's like a classic straw man argument that's not real.
Well, here's the thing. What is saltationism? Saltationism is punctuated equilibrium. Sorry, excuse me. Let me get my words out. Punctuated. No.
Saltationism.
Saltationism.
Words.
Saltationism is punctuated equilibrium without a method or a driving or a force, a reason.
Well, okay, let's back that up a little bit.
Observationally,
when we're talking about saltationism, we're referring to saltationism comes from like particles that like a sand grain that suddenly hits a certain force, removes its friction, and jumps to something else.
Then you see that with state changes. The best example is state changes, solid, liquid, gas.
Yes.
You're either a solid, liquid, or a gas, and it's very rare that things will...
Plasma.
Yeah.
Plasma is a weird exception, but let's not look at the weird exceptions at this particular point.
Where the things will jump from gas state straight to solid, and vice versa.
Yeah. So that's kind of your example, your base example to work off of, and I guess saltation. Bear in mind there are a lot of saltationists that did very good work in England, and I guess I don't know how much of this is because they're English and we know about them more than we know about some of the American work. I think the underlying assumption when you're working at a higher level is you know about punctuated equilibrium, you know about discontinuities, and you know about the methods, but when they teach you undergrad, they don't teach you the truth. They teach you a truth so that you can understand the world to an extent and that you can pass the exams they set you.
But let's back up and maybe define a few terms here.
Punctuated equalism.
Yeah, punctuated equilibrium is basically a theory that the majority of the time, the majority of your time of a species is actually spent in relative stasis.
Yeah.
And it's just at the moments of speciation that much change occurs. Now, this has been unfairly referred to as saltationism, where saltationism is the suggestion that you suddenly like instantaneously change. And that's not really what punctuated equilibrium is talking about.
No, it's not. It's more detailed. The trouble is, observationally, it looks the same.
Well,
that's why people do that.
Within the fossil record, but you've got time averaging of maybe 100,000 to maybe even a million years.
The difference is saltationism talks about single lineage. Punctuated equilibrium talks about diverging lineages.
Okay, but the key thing that Eldridge and Gould were trying to get at for punctuated equilibrium was that within the early lifespan of a species, the point of speciation, you have the majority of your change, which might be going on through gradual change, and likely is, just owing to the basic speciation events like allopatry or parapatry. And allopatry or parapatry are basically when you take a species and you isolate either a peripheral part or you cut like a major geographic barrier across the species ranges and you prevent breeding back and forth. And that results in genetic drift and also differential selection to cause gradual change to a new evolutionary trajectory. And so within punctuated equilibrium, what you're actually looking at is not necessarily saltationism, but the suggestion that you early on fixate to a point due to gradualistic processes and then kind of hit a stasis. Whether or not that stasis is locked in, like stabilizing selection, which is sometimes suggested, or whether or not it's more of a dynamic stasis, like an element of multi-populations interbreeding together and sort of fixing at a relative mean that can vary through time, is debatable. But the pattern really is not necessarily saltationist, and it was unfairly assumed to be saltationism throughout the majority of its history.
Well, I mean, what that is, again, is it's people that didn't like the new idea finding a reason to criticize it, and then people that don't work on that. There is a habit of people that don't really know, don't work in the field.
You youngins bring up new stuff.
One point. But the other thing is, and I've done this myself, when you don't really know something about a subject, the first convincing thing you read, you'll tend to lock onto and believe.
That is true.
Yeah.
I also think there's an interesting element of Eldridge's. Wasn't Eldridge who quoted or maybe it was Gould? The first time everyone rejects it, then everyone says they knew it all along, and why the fuck are you talking about it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it's the same. It's like everyone assumed evolution. By the time Darwin published his theory of evolution, people were working with trees. but he was the first one that codified it and brought everyone onto the same page.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I feel like we've wandered a little bit dramatically.
Yeah,
from
we kind of got
Qiushan
kind of heavy.
Hua.
Yeah.
Although I think we discussed some interesting things. So is there anything else that anyone wants to talk about?
No.
Okay, well, I guess that's it for this particular podcast. So, as we mentioned in our pilot, which I guess may or may not have heard at
Episode
this point,
0.
we're going to refer to it as episode 0. Taphonomy is a process.
Like ground zero.
It's about right. We really apologize for the lack of pop filters in that one. It is maybe a little bit noticeable at times.
We also apologize for the wanderingness in this, but
No, that's normal. You're gonna
We're not going to fucking apologize for that because that's what this is. If you're listening to this, this is pretty much it from now on.
Just fucking suck it up and listen again.
Okay, if you don't want to listen again, don't listen again. But
totally
No,
listen.
you have to listen again.
oh my God, Randall's commanding you.
I need a reason to drink every Sunday.
Randall's
Listen again.
very serious every other Sunday.
Every
Oh,
other Sunday.
okay, forget that.
I mean, we could do every Sunday, but it's not what we're planning right now.
No.
No, if we go to every Sunday, there's just going to be like one.
Then it's just going to be alcoholism.
I would say if we go to every Sunday, James
that would
is
be
going to die.
That'd be the three of us.
Oh, come
Because
on.
Amanda would be stupid enough to do every Sunday.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. He's working on his, 8th day of his hangover?
Oh, come on, guys.
Anyway, with that, I think we'll leave you now. I'm Curtis,
I'm Randall.
I'm Amanda.
I'm James.
and we are signing off. Have a pleasant day.
Yeah, step back and think about what you just said.
Look, you know I don't engage my brain when I'm talking.
I had noticed.
There's a whole brain-mouth disconnect.
I mean, I've had a headache for a week.
You should probably get that looked at. Oh, wait, you refuse to.
No, it's not that I refuse to. It's that I'm
James, have you had a headache for a week because you've had a hangover for a week?
worried
That is
could be it.
That's a feasible explanation,
Hey,
yes.
James, confess.
it has occurred to me